Hello and welcome to the EUphoria podcast. I guess you're surprised to hear my voice all of a sudden. Normally it's Dracos, as I've never really done this before. Dracos is my host, but he's gone. And now I'm here with Medi Vedi for a special episode of Couples Therapy to figure out why I'm casting with Medic so much recently and Vedius isn't.
Hey man, I've been busy.
That is actually true.
I had stuff to do.
You even dodged us on Monday.
I didn't dodge. I was paralyzed.
Oh,
There's a
paralyzed.
significant
My
difference.
back hurts. I'm over 30.
Yeah, that's the burden of age.
Yeah.
And it's Medic's debut on EUphoria.
It's true.
Never been on it.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome.
At the end of the episode, you'll understand why.
Just going to talk about a load of
Do you know
random
there was
shit.
a period in time when Deficio and Dracos used to host where they just stopped inviting me because I wasn't very good at podcasts.
It's going to be a great episode, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, what's changed?
Nothing, honestly. I don't know why they keep putting me
Deficio's
here.
gone. That's all.
Yeah.
Now we've got to invite you back. As always, EUphoria is available on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcast.
But can we get to the heart of the issue, Mark?
What's the heart of the issue?
Why do you hate Fnatic?
Yeah,
I
that's a
don't
good
hate
question,
Fnatic.
actually.
No.
I
We've
don't
got to
hate
get to the
Fnatic.
bottom of this because, like, you oppressed them.
Okay, so for context, for a lot of people who don't know, I was streaming the LPL playoffs.
As you often are.
And there's a website called /r/place on Reddit, which I'm sure maybe some of you have seen, where you can place one pixel every 4 or 5 minutes, and there's thousands of pixels. And obviously, I made a little piece of artwork for my stream, and then I found.
Trying to describe it for the audience.
Can you describe the artwork?
It was just nature.
Nature, was it?
I like nature.
Yeah.
It was just a picture of nature. For
right.
those who know, you know.
Yeah.
But then I found Fnatic's one, but it was tiny. It was only about 15 pixels.
Okay.
And so when my chat found out that the Fnatic logo was there, they unleashed and destroyed it. Maybe I
At your
insinuated
behest,
it by saying change the Fnatic wording to Pedro for fun, just to make it funny.
Wow.
And they did that, but then I said stop. But obviously, when you tell someone not to press the red button, they're gonna press the red button.
Yeah.
So your ego took over.
Yeah,
No,
I
that's
often
not true.
find stream chats are a representation of the streamer's personality,
they are.
right? And so
They are.
I think we just see that sort of taken to its logical conclusion.
I feel like the hive minds are a fake law, and I don't control the hive mind.
Do you gain a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment?
What
when
is
you-
this?
when
Why
you-
are we
when you
interviewing
bully
me?
the
What's
lesser man?
happening?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but this is actually the Medi Vedi
Medi Vedi
EUphoria
podcast.
special,
Oh,
and we're
yeah.
joined by special guest Caedrel
Nice to see you.
to discuss what it's like being a big streamer in the industry.
So why
Let's
did
talk
you
about
leave
your
Excel?
Let's
Why
talk
did
about
you?
your chat, Betty. Then what does it represent from
My chat, it's quiet. No one says anything. I have a wonderful time.
Why did I leave Excel? Which time? Which time?
You know, I've been thinking recently that the reason why you hate OMG so much is because they failed to qualify for top 6 in the LPL.
No, I hate them.
And therefore, they're a representation of what you were.
No,
you
it's
know,
kinda
so you
like-
hate them.
It's kind of like, I don't know what the show is. It's not Power Rangers. What is it when you have like a bot that you control and then you fight with the robot wars? You ever seen Robot Wars?
I have seen Robot Wars.
Where you have like the swords and stuff.
So kill a lot.
Yes,
Oh,
Circular
Robot Wars.
Matilda.
Like, Matilda, man.
Yeah, Robot
And
Wars.
what was
where
his
they-
name?
they
Craig
make-
Charles, the guy that did the announcement that was also in Red Dwarf,
yes.
had that northern voice.
But this is very British,
Yeah, yeah.
just
Yeah.
for the record.
I mean, there's
the
an
record-
American version as well. I think it's called Battle Bots.
Yeah, they
Because
make
bots is simpler than robot.
True.
they make robots and then they attack each other's robots with like chainsaws and
It's
like
pretty lit,
spinning
actually.
wheels.
flipping things.
When you're a young man, it's like,
This is cool.
Yeah.
This is cool. So Dom's little OMG robot came to the Weibo neighborhood and just got its chainsaw out and started sawing me in half.
I
Okay.
see.
So then it became hate watching.
I see.
So now every time he's in a stadium, I then walk around and kick his robot.
See,
see.
for me, I hate watching The Shy. And so I'm very glad that they've lost now.
You know what? Both robots are out now. Both
Exactly.
robots have no one to fight. It was the Titans, the JG and BLG are going to win. They're going to be the biggest robots that win. So yeah.
But hey, can you stop talking about the LPL? We're here to talk about the LEC,
please.
Caedrel. So how are you, my co-host Medic?
Yeah, I'm doing well, actually. Yeah, I watched Barbie and Oppenheimer last night.
Oh, really?
The Boppenheimer combination.
Appreciate the invitation.
Oppenheimer.
You know, you're always welcome to join me, Vedius.
I clearly wasn't.
Well, I
I
just
knew this
assumed
was
you-
couples therapy.
Yeah.
So
Not just
why
have
didn't
like
you
a-
invite him to the cinema, Medic?
Well, I didn't think Barbie would be your sort of movie.
if anything, Oppenheimer wouldn't be my sort of
No?
movie.
You
Barbie
don't like
sounds
explosions?
lit. I don't know. Isn't Oppenheimer like some sort of deep psychological
Yeah, kind
exploration
of.
into?
It is very long as well. It's 3 hours, 1 minute. And for you, that's like
3 hours?
2 raids in Lost Ark.
That is.
Yeah,
that's a
we got
tough
home at
one.
like midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be an at-home one.
Wait, so you did them both in the same day?
Yeah, we went
That's
there,
the
went there at
trend right
5
now. That
and
is the
watched Barbie
trend.
and then watched Oppenheimer. I didn't I'm kind of gonna like reveal this, and I hope the person whose birthday it was isn't watching. But like, we missed her birthday on Friday, so we're like, oh, we'll take you out to see a movie and get you dinner as like, you know, recompense, like, making up for our issues.
Right.
So you're a bad friend.
Yeah, I mean, sure, sure, like, whatever.
Hey, don't attack my co-host
The bad friend bit comes next, and then she was like, "Hey, I want to watch Barbie and Oppenheimer," and I was like, "Well, like, I can't say no now because I missed your birthday on Friday, but I really didn't want to be there for 6 hours watching Barbie and Oppenheimer."
Because I feel like when you watch one movie, you finish and you're like, wow, you get an opinion of the movie, you're kind of tired, you finish your popcorn.
And then you go into a movie about making atomic bombs. And they're like, oh, all these spinning, the editing's really fast as well. I was very stressed
When you're on
out.
your couch watching like the Lord of the Rings extended edition, you can just pause and have breaks.
Yeah.
You know, you can get up. Was there like a break in the 3-hour film? In the Batman, they did a break. There was
To
3 hours.
contrast, that's like a 6-game day. You've cast 6-game day before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're tough.
But one of them I get paid
Wasn't
for, and
there
the other one was watching Barbie and Oppenheimer in a row.
You paid for that.
Yeah.
Wasn't there like an MSI with like 8 games or something with time?
Yeah, there was.
It was the,
That's true. That was the. Do you remember RNG Unicorns of Love?
Yeah.
That was
the 3-team
whoever
group.
was on that.
2022.
The old, the old
No, well, so
Rumble stage
there
of
was a
MSI.
team that didn't participate.
It was
that
the
year.
VCS because they couldn't make it.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
that-
2022
during
MSI,
COVID,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and so there was an odd number of teams, and then there was a group that obviously was missing. So that was when RNG went 8-0 in the group, and we all had to watch RNG beat Unicorns of Love
the 15th
and
time in
another
a row.
time.
Wasn't Direwolves the other team? Or
I
Chiefs?
don't-
I think it was the
It
OS
was
team.
the team.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
The year before that was the year the C9 got knocked out by OC, right?
Yeah.
That was a good year.
Well, no, they didn't get knocked out. I think they just lost the game. I don't think they got knocked out.
Well, I'm going to have to check this
I swear
now,
it was
'cause
like a
remember it being
tiebreaker.
No.
like
That was the MSI where the Australia qualified for the top 6, but I'm pretty sure
20
actually,
is 2021, right?
I think they won them.
No,
against
C9
them.
got through. Oh, but the C9, Pentanet beat C9
Yes.
so they couldn't get 4th place and make it to the playoff stage.
Correct.
So
yes.
they knocked them out.
No, they didn't knock them out.
That's kind of cool though. The
No,
OC.
because like this is like, you know, when we said at MSI that Licorice killed every LPL top laner and that
When
just
only-
didn't happen.
It was like what was it? It was like everyone was saying that he solo killed like Bin, but he killed 369 or something.
Yeah.
No,
Or was
well,
it the
so
way around?
he killed 369, and for some reason we all just believed that he also
Yeah.
solo killed Bin because he had a good game against
He
Bin.
did kill Bin, but it was 2 people were there.
Yeah.
It was a 2v1.
In any case, it's
Anyway, there's gonna be a lot of ranting in this podcast. There's a couple topics we're gonna hit for sure when it comes to like the LEC and the teams and predictions and looking forwards. But I feel like with you two, even when we cast, especially with Medic, every
What?
time I cast with Medic,
What's wrong with casting a medic?
it's not wrong. It's just
it's not
like,
wrong. It's just we both look at each other, and I don't know if it's a sense of humor, but a direction is going, and we're going that direction.
Yeah.
And like for
I
example,
mean, we can break down the psychology of your casting if you want.
it's just he likes to take digs at me, so then I attempt digs back at him that are so
your decks
bad.
are good.
They're
They're
sometimes
solid.
all right, and then we just go off the rails,
Well,
and he sits in the crowd for
here's
about
the-
half an hour,
Here's the problem.
and then
was-
does
that was
nothing
fun.
and gets paid for it.
Yeah,
And
I
then
still
have
came
to
back for
cast.
first blood. Okay, that's the important thing.
Your type of comedy, you're not the wittiest individual. You know, quick humor. He,
Uh,
on the other
is there
hand,
a but with a
he on the other hand is quite witty.
Right.
You see, he can come up with like clever puns and his one-liners.
He builds
very
wits end.
quickly. Again,
That-
you've
no, that's
just-
solid.
you've
That
just
is
reinforced
solid.
my
Yeah,
Come on,
point.
tell me in the comments. That was a good
doesn't-
one, right?
No, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so you have an interesting dynamic, but he's committed to following you. You see, that's his problem. He'll go down the rabbit hole regardless of where it is, and so you end up with a very strange comedic
Yeah,
dynamic.
that's fine. I also think at the moment I care less about analysis in my casting. I'm much more just like I'm just gonna have some.
I feel
fun
like
and
I'm
we're gonna enjoy
super
it,
game
right?
focused
Yeah,
all the
which
time.
is fine, and it's good
Yeah,
because you can be really
fine
game
with that.
focused, and then I bounce off you, and then I take us off the rails a bit, and then we go back to the game.
I wonder what it's like being a viewer. It's like, here's this massive macro play that's going on with this ward here, and then Medic just says that I've got funny pants on.
That's not what Medic does.
But also, I will say, most of our viewers wouldn't know there's a macro play going on, like a really good one, unless you told them. And that's no offense to our viewers, but like I've watched the game for a
So
very
you're
long
saying
time.
our viewers are all idiots, and that they should watch the cast meter.
Why? Are you
Viewers of
instigating?
Euphoria
What
are
are you
idiots.
doing? What are you
However,
doing
viewers
right
of the
now?
Medi Vedi Euphoria special are
Yeah.
geniuses. Okay.
When's the Medi
We-
Vedi podcast coming out?
I keep trying to push Vedi to do it, and
That's
he
not
says
true.
people wouldn't be interested.
I don't again, like, we're going way off topic.
Just
here.
you and I shooting the shit. Like, I have some cool thoughts that I want to share with you, but I can't unless it's in podcast
You know what the
format.
best thing about all of this is? In the YouTube video, there's
Yeah.
like snippets of the bottom bar where it tells you what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm
chapters.
aware.
Normally, the intro part is
is-
like 2 minutes, and then we're talking about the LEC. My time is at 11.
Well, you had 11-minute intros. I remember the Black Clover intro I did with Dracos once. That was
Don't get the Black
that was a dime.
It's actually at almost 10, but I forgot to start it for the first minute. And then the
did.
producer was like, start the timer. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm hosting.
But
I have to
speaking
keep track
about
of
Black
time.
Clover,
Yeah.
people being annoyed for no reason. Let's talk about G2 versus XL. Because why are people so annoyed
Good segue,
at
Medic.
League of Legends, right? Like,
Why are they annoyed?
the amount of tweets I've seen being like, oh, G2,
Show me a Twitter.
G2.
Show me a tweet. Find one right now.
You know, I'm going to open up the
Okay,
post-match
sure.
Yeah,
thread.
give me a tweet.
G2,
While you talk, find me a tweet.
Okay, well, yeah. The problem is I can't multitask that well, so this is going to be a bit of a shot.
No, I'll do.
You're going to find a tweet?
I'm going to find
But the amount of
Reddit.
people I've seen
Yeah.
on Reddit and on Twitter being like, this means we're doomed for Worlds. And I'm like,
Oh.
I don't care. Right? It doesn't matter if the quality of LEC is that bad. Sometimes you just have to enjoy what you've got at the moment.
The best comment of that whole series, if you guys have watched the series at home, is this is what Steve thought he was buying when he got TL and Summer.
Yeah.
He's just completely 1v9ing on the Cogmore.
Yeah.
But no, I think there was a lot of negativity. I think that a lot of negativity
okay, I'll say there
stems
wasn't-
from Caps, actually. Because a lot of people looked at G2 and thought, wow, Caps, he's having a great split. And we thought so too.
In game one, he played
Game
really
one, he
well.
played good. The rest of those 4 games, it wasn't craps or caps. It was just blank. Didn't see him.
game two was craps.
Game 2 was craps.
Tower dived.
He definitely,
on
like,
3.
Didn't do as much in the games or have as much of an impact. You know, the first game he picks Nico, he solo kills Abadaga, right? And then he has like 3-man ultimates, 4 team fights in a row. And then he kind of, the Nico gets banned and he goes to different champions like the Syndra and such and the Ahri. And he, as much as Ahri's like a supportive champion, some of those games he just didn't have caps moments or as much impact at all in those games. And I feel like that's a big reason as to why the series went to 5, because Abadaga got Jace a lot and had like insane performances.
Okay, so there's 2 topics there. The first one is the negativity. Fans are always going to be skeptical as we get closer to Worlds, right? But I never think that a close best of 5, where there are misplays, is a representation of a team's ability to play good league.
Sure.
I think it's fair to say that you could also look at like Weibo versus LNG, or you could look at the other one. What was it? EDG versus
Top Esports.
Top.
Yeah.
And you could sit there and go, these were clown fiestas in the same way, like for different reasons. And like, I haven't done proper analysis on those games, but I'm sure if I tried hard enough, I could find reasons where the mistakes were made or where they did bad things. Like often when you have 2 good teams playing against each other, mistakes are just often more exacerbated because good teams are better at punishing those mistakes. But all that means is that a small mistake has a greater impact. And I think that there's the beauty of having games like this is that you hope that teams grow. You want competition in your league because that's how the teams get better. And Broken Blade summed it up really nicely in PGL, where he was like, I hope both teams learn from this. Because I think there is a lot to learn. And I think that moving into the next best of 5s, both me and XL are going to be much better. You know, the second thing on Caps is that I still think overall he played pretty well. I just think that the thing that I think surprised me was how well Peach and Abadage worked together. Yeah. I think that Caps has always been known to be a pretty lane dominant player and how he likes to build his leads. And I think Peach caught on pretty quickly that he can punish that, and he did punish him a good number. I remember on the Lucian game where he was like sitting underneath his tower, and then Peach like flashed W'd onto the Maokai, and then the Lucian ended up getting killed, and then Abadage got a couple early kills.
Even
like
the Syndra game, right? Like Peach constantly ganking.
Oh yeah, that was a beautiful
gank
gank actually.
Really
the Q flash.
Yeah. So it was like the mid jungle synergy. I think was just more apparent. Whereas I think Yike, it's not like he never played around mid. I think Yike has just been very consistent pretty much throughout the entire split. But yeah, I think that people's expectations of what Caps is capable of, especially after the first game, it's he obviously has high standards to live up to, and it's always going to be difficult to meet those all the time. But overall, I definitely have more confidence in him now than I did in spring. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, he was really struggling in spring, right? I also just back onto the Worlds thing quickly because we are kind of like straddling 2 topics at the moment. I just want to like wrap up the frustration around like G2XL wasn't a great series. I think sometimes because we have Worlds every year and it's regional teams competing at it, sometimes we lose track of how important winning an LEC split is or winning the LEC is, right? For example, in football, right, if you win the Premier League, that is a huge deal. Leicester City won the Premier League 2015, I think it was, 2015, 2016.
Never let it down.
I never. For me, as a lifelong Leicester City fan, they were 2 divisions below that. They were where XL were in spring and winter, right? And now if XL have a chance to win a split of the LEC, that's incredible for them. And obviously, they'll probably get wrecked at Worlds if they get there, right? Like JDG look good, Top Esports look good, LCK teams look good apart from T1, but that's a different story, right?
Yeah,
and
we'll talk about that.
There's a frustration there because we want to do well at Worlds, but also there's a joy in being good domestically. And I know some people will be like, that's just a cope take. Sure. Like if your only goal is to be good internationally, then that is a cope take. I think finding joy domestically is super important, just generally for the longevity of a league.
I do also think, though, that it's important to recognize that the fans that will go out of their way to make comments are normally the diehard fans.
Oh, sure.
So it's also just the voices that we often hear are from the fans that...
it's a loud minority, right?
Yeah, it's the ones that definitely care the most. Because like I definitely am at a point where I've followed League for so long that I also see Worlds, like I just want us to get to Worlds. You know what I mean? Like I've seen so many LEC splits in my time, but like my mum was literally crying.
Your mum's a diehard XL fan,
she's been
right?
a diehard XL fan for ages, and she'd kind of like...
I was on the...
She didn't even know who you were, so no.
That's a lie.
No
That's
joke.
a lie.
When you joined the broadcast, she said...
I was on the team for 2 years and you told me she was a fan when I was on the broadcast.
She said, who's the guy that joined your team? And I was like, he used to play on XL. And she's like, when?
I swear
she only watched playoffs onwards. That's the issue.
Do you want to know? This is really mean, but I think I can say it now.
Oh no!
She flamed me, didn't she?
No, you know that
jungler was. Here it comes.
Okay, my mum's not that northern. What are you talking?
I don't know what a Welsh accent sounds like.
She's not Welsh. She's from Manchester.
Wait, so you're Welsh on your dad's side?
Okay, can we just get to the flame here from Medi, please?
So the roster with Norskeren on it, she wanted Norskeren benched every split. And I am not kidding. She was like...
That's horrible.
She was DMing me and she was like, get this guy off the team. And
so
I was
what
like,
you're telling me is she knows the names of the players she thinks plays bad, and she didn't know my name. Caedrel wasn't the problem.
She's been a huge Patrick fan ever since. Her favorite roster was the Patrick Mickey one. She thought that one had potential. She really believed in that one.
So Patrick Mickey...
I forget who else was on it.
No, did she say any other names?
No.
Mid and bot.
She was happy when they acquired Odoamne. She's hated the coaching staff for a long time.
What about the new coaching staff with Hidon?
I mean, Hidon.
She hasn't commented on them recently.
Yeah, we need to get her on the analyst desk for the XL series, really, don't we? No.
But I was like, we're going off topic. I'm like, no, we're not talking about XL, because it's so weird to me to think that they were actually fighting for a spot in the finals, which I think, like, to kind of tie back to your point is I was like amazed. Because I spoke to Medic in the morning because I was too unwell to cast, right? And I was like, I hope you get a good series, right? And he was like, it'll probably just be a 3-0. And like, I was like, yeah, I hope it's like at least 3-1 or something. So it's interesting. And then you got 4-5 games.
But it's those kind of series that you always think like are going to be 3-0s that randomly like turn into like these massive 3-2 series. Like for example, like the Rogue run last year, everyone thought, Fnatic Rogue, we'll get a Fnatic G2 final.
Even BDS Matt in
BDS
spring,
Matt
a lot of people looked at BDS as like clear favorites there.
Yeah,
so.
I think the biggest question as well was like the main form of negativity in that sense was, is XL good or is G2 like bad?
Yeah.
But you look at a lot of those team fights and you look at the dynamics of them, and like Broken Blade's behind on Jackson, he's landing like these insane engages. Abadage has like a really tough lane phase throughout the group stage, the best of threes, and then he goes up against Caps and plays out of his mind, and was one of the biggest factors in those games as well in terms of carrying with the Jace and such. They both found a really good style that worked for them. Like you could see the different dynamics of, we both play Kalista, but you guys really want Jace Maokai, and we want to play Kog'Maw Braum on 2-3 and pick blue side and stuff like this. And we also want to pick away Rel, and I think Rel was a big pick.
Big, yeah.
The interesting thing I think about G2 is, if you look at around the world, Kai'Sa first pick is happening a lot. It's like everyone's giving up Kai'Sa on blue side. Most people's responses still on this patch are like Aphelios. We'll just go Aphelios or we'll go Jinx. But G2's answers are, we'll play Kalista into it, or we'll just play Kog'Maw Braum, and you can pick whatever support you want because we banned Rakan on blue side. So I feel like if you look at the actual quality of the team fights, and then look at the quality of the drafts, I feel like G2 especially is like that one step ahead. I'll say XL as well because they played Kalista, but they blundered really hard on the 2v2.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
but it feels like the creativity is kind of coming through a little bit through bot lane, whereas in other regions I don't really see that as much right now.
sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, okay. I thought you had a follow-up point where you'd be like, yeah, well, I've seen this, or I've seen that.
Well, I mean,
Sorry, you can go
No,
first.
yeah, no,
I was
go
just going to say, I
please.
think Braum generally is a pretty good pick with a lot of people going Jace Kai'Sa at the moment because he negates not only the poke, but also gives you like control of the lane as well with the Unbreakable, right? So, especially with the Rakan ban. I think if you don't ban Rakan, you're going to struggle a little bit. And then there's always the risk of the enemy going like Enchanter support and just, range support into you and harassing you down in lane. But then they have to find more engage from somewhere else in their comp. And if you're going double poke, you can't find that as easily.
So this ties into like, I don't know how off topic this is, but
with the deaf man, just
I
go.
think-
Like just say whatever you want.
I think that the meta right now is just better, right?
To
in the
watch,
sense
or-
that, well, I just think it's better specifically for Europe because our league is full of engaged support players.
Yeah.
And so like watching Mickey over the like on 13-13 has been a joy.
Yeah.
This man has like, in my opinion, clearly cemented himself as the top support in Europe once again. He's playing super, super well. And it's just because he gets like, he was an early adopter of the Rel, right? Like they were prioritizing, they flex it too. You talked about how like it was a super important pick, but also like Limit, we've known him for ages as this like Nautilus, Alistair, Rakan. Like Europe is full of really good Rakan players. That's not to say there aren't very good Rakan players around the world, but like you can like Hillisang, Mickey, Trimby, Limit. Like there's probably more that I'm forgetting. That like there's just so many that like all these supports. Like oh yeah, they one tricked Rakan to Challenger and stuff. You know, and so when you have supports that get to play melee champs, it opens up for a lot more playmaking. And something that I spoke with a couple coaches about was the introduction of Static Shiv. What that means is that you can basically, so when you do the lane assignments, right, what happens is as you get to the mid game, you'll send your TP to the weak side, and then you'll take your non-TP into the strong side, and then you play 4-man like with your AD carry support mid, and then you use that push into river, and then you play towards your strong side, right? Sure. You don't need to do that with Static Shiv. You can just leave your AD carry alone in mid lane. They one-shot the wave, and then you've gained your priority, which means that the support is just engaged more on the map, contesting vision, working with the jungler. And I think that this type of playstyle is like perfect for a G2 specifically, just because it allows them like, and we saw game one was a great representation of how quickly they could snowball with such a small lead. And I think that that's a large part of it, just because of things like that give you the ability to do that. And so I think that XL being able to comfortably slot into a meta that also like, I think that throughout the series, they were kind of learning themselves how they can better take advantage, things that G2 were doing that they could better optimize. They also like in game 2, when I saw that, I felt like it was G2 losing more than it was XL winning.
Yeah, there was a few end plays in the early game from G2.
But then as the series went on, I felt like, oh, this is XL winning. Yeah. You know what I mean? This isn't just G2 making blunders that XL are just getting free advantages on. And also the way in which XL actually won game 2. I couldn't help but feel watching that game, oh, G2's actually going to come back in this game. They made a couple of early ints, but XL actually never gave them the opportunity to, you know? So, I think that the meta is really good for both these teams. I really enjoy what we're seeing right now. And I don't know, as long as the meta doesn't change too much going into Worlds, which it probably will.
It's a lot of patches.
It's what, 7 patches or something?
We're on 13-4 now.
We're on 13-13 now.
13-13,
So we'll
yeah.
put
So
it
there'll be
13-14.
13-16, or 13-15 at least for season finals. So
There'll
it's probably
be-
going to be 13-18 or 19.
I think by the looks of it, Static Shiv's getting hit again.
Yeah.
Gale Force is getting nerfed. Infinity Edge is getting buffed. Things like this. So ADs will probably change in the direction I would expect on more on-hit rather than like casters. You know, like Varus, Kai'Sa is very on-hit, AP, Static Shiv heavy. I think those ones will probably fall out. Maybe we'll get more like Tristana bots, like super heavy Tristana flex. Maybe we'll get more like Ashe on hit with Infinity Edge, like any Infinity Edge user.
I wonder
maybe
if they
Draven.
do anything with the mage items too. I know they always keep talking about it, but like mid lane's been stale. I like the Vedius talked about it, where he was like, the champs actually haven't changed that much. It's been the same kind of mid pool for a long time now.
Yeah. True, but the mid pool changed as well with Static Shiv as well, didn't it? I think because you know
it did a little bit, but it just kind of just showed everyone that LeBlanc is still viable, which I think she still can.
Yeah, and was it in the LPL? Someone was playing LeBlanc without Static Shiv, Electrocute
I
full
remember.
AP,
Yeah, I
and it
remember.
actually was pretty good still. So LeBlanc's probably viable. The only thing is, like, if LeBlanc is viable as AP, then Lissandra's good again, right? And if Lissandra's good, then Cassio's good, for example, right? Because it wins the lane, or Syndra. So I guess with static nerfs, we either go back to like mages mid, or we go back to like maybe roaming mids, you know, like Talia or Ryze.
With mid laners, it's all about who can get priority, right?
Yeah.
I hope Ryze comes back. I actually like
Ryze has been getting a couple buffs here and
He
there.
has.
He's
yeah.
100% going to be back for Worlds. He always is. Corki rises it. They'll all be there in some way, shape, or form.
Will T1 be at Worlds to play Ryze? That's gonna be tough. The last thing I'll say on the XL thing as well is I think Limit was smurfing.
Yeah,
like
played really
this
well.
guy, he had Relban against him. He played a lot of Alistar, but he played so cocky. And there was a few games where, you know, or a few instances where he like Q flashes on Braum and nothing happens. You know, it's like he hits it and no one can follow up. Like I remember a level 1 play as well. I don't know if that was game 5. But he was an insane like turnaround player for XL. And I'm just still kind of shocked sitting here being like 10th. Vito leaves. Vito's top 4.
Yep.
Abadaga comes in with a splits a break. He hasn't played for ages. And Peach is just an ERL jungler who was on an academy team in Korea. And now they're top 3 minimum, right? And I also think it's kind of interesting how players from Korean leagues, that aren't even like Premier leagues like the LCK, these are challenger players coming in smurfing, right? So like Noah is another good example. Marang was a substitute. You've got Peach coming in who's also smurfing. And these are all like KT challengers, old challengers players.
Sure.
There's never really been like a staple LCK player come in. I remember Mickey was on my team who was like kind of up there, middle of the tier. But we've never really had like a core JJ come in, you know, where it's like he's won Worlds. Now there's a Korean player come in. Or an Impact. You know, I remember Ignar being
Photon is another one.
Academy player, right?
Academy,
Ignar is one that stands out to me, but that was like 2018. I'm not sure how big Ignar was on the ladder of like
he was
top tier.
He was
I think
always.
You know who the last
Challenger
one was?
series.
I think it was Hachani. He won with KT, didn't he?
And that's
Came
probably
over.
why we haven't done it again.
So these players are cheap and they're super good. Every single one of those players. Photon was one of the best players in the league. Malrang was one of our best junglers. Like Noah is one of our best AD carries now. Peach is now one of our best junglers. And these players are coming from Challengers Korea and they're popping off in the LEC. And either this is a case of good scouting or I wonder what happens when we get a premier Korean player. But I think the system's pretty good now. For
I think it can be a mix as well, right? Because if you're an LCK team and you're looking at your academy AD carry and you're like, well, you know, we have Gumo at the moment. Do we want to look at our academy AD carry as a replacement? It's like Noah, he wasn't on T1, for example. Say Noah's
like
in that
Berserker
academy,
for
right?
C9.
Yeah,
right?
Berserker. Right? Like he can be an incredibly good player, but your team is comfy with Guma and you're like, well, Guma is actually 5% better. So just because they're in a challenger league doesn't mean that they are low quality LCK imports, right? It just means that for some reason their main team didn't want them, maybe due to synergy, maybe there's a slight skill difference. I do wonder if we'll get a main roster LCK player. I also wonder if we want one.
Yeah.
Right, like how, I mean, if any team's going to do it, it's probably going to be Vitality with with the way that they scout and they play teams.
Something like that before?
I mean, they got Bo, I guess, but yeah, it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I feel like if you look at the last like 8 years of League of Legends in Europe, I feel like 2015, 16, it was like imports. You know, it was like the Reign over Huni era of like
Spirit comes.
It was like, yeah, exactly. Like What Did was coming in, Expect was coming in for G2, stuff like that. And then as 2019 and 2018 rolled around, we didn't have that many Korean imports, I feel like. Now,
like any actually.
Yeah, can be sense corrected.
Malrang is like
2018, 2019 didn't even have Malrang, you know. It was like, that was like
right.
Ignar was leaving. That
yeah,
was,
I mean, 18 was.
I think
we had a couple like, well, isn't 2018, 2019 Mickey as well, your mid laner?
Yeah, but I think it's more so like the top teams we had in Europe. Very low imports, you know. It was like the Fnatic roster, the G2 roster.
Yeah, G2 and Fnatic didn't want them.
And then over the last few years, that's happened again. Not to say it's a bad thing, but like I feel like when talent slowly dries up, or you know, teams are finding that the European players are retiring, or a lot of players are moving on to NA, for example, LCK Challengers players just come in.
Well, I mean, there's also just I think there's such a healthy ecosystem right now that a lot of players want to stay in ERLs.
Yeah.
I think a
That's
lot of
very
them,
true.
I think a lot of them are just very comfortable. They can stay in France, Spain, Germany, wherever it is that they want to stay. They can probably make a decent living. It's also probably less stressful. The impact of failing to win an ERL is probably significantly lower than failing to win LEC.
True. I guess the lack of aspiration is there, but then again, like if there's
to say
players,
that all players are like that, obviously, but there's probably a few, and there might be a couple of good ones. Like I know that like some have even had opportunity, like
Cabo.
Well, I think of also a player like Agresivo. He's a player that has been around the scene for a long time, and I'm not saying that he lacks ambition. That's not my point. My point is that like he's been in LEC. People have had their opinions on him, but he's clearly still good enough to compete in ERL. And we probably have a lot of those players where they're really good and they're probably better than a lot of ERL talent. But for some reason, when they get to LEC level, the way in which they win games and succeed doesn't seem to work at that LEC level.
It can even be synergy, right? Like you get into a team that you don't have synergy with, and the meta read is bad or the patch is bad for you. Like if you come in for one split of the LEC, you get 9 games over 3 weeks.
But how have we got on this topic, Mark? You started by talking about the Korean imports. What was your point? What was the point you were trying to make?
My point was just your opinion on these Korean imports coming in.
But we also grow imports through ERLs now as well. Like more ERL teams are willing to import players, right? And I think the general ecosystem in Europe is actually very strong for that. And I don't, as
but
Vedi
for some
said,
reason,
it's not just ambition.
We also have pros talk to me, not pros, coaches talk to me all the time about how like top lane is a weak role in Europe. That's the perception.
And we have 3 import top laners.
Yep.
I think
Ebby,
and Chasey.
I think the main
out of our 8 total imports, 3 of them are top.
Chasey's
2 of them are
good one.
jungle.
He was on Damwon, wasn't he? Damwon challenges.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think the main point of this topic discussion was: do you think more teams are going to do it in Europe? You know, so these teams near the bottom are going to. If I'm Vitality and I have to spend $500,000 for like a top tier player to import or whatever it is,
I actually wonder with the LCK salary cap that's been rumored / semi-announced whether we'll see more imports. Because I don't think we have a full salary cap in Europe yet. And if you can't make as much money over in the LCK, maybe we see more Korean players coming across.
Yeah, Europe's interesting because, like, I know we're talking about salaries and all these things and future of the league and such.
You're
but
really
like,
stuck on this topic, Mark?
It's a good topic. It's a good topic, I think. But, like, if you look at the LCS, salaries can go to the wild millions, right? You look at the LCK.
Not anymore, I don't think.
Maybe not. I think that's more so because, like, people have kind of given up with that idea of
it's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable, right? And the LCK, from what I know, the salaries are there's 2 tiers. You're either top tier getting paid the big bucks, or your bottom tier getting paid the lowest amount of bucks. Yeah. There's very little middle ground. Whereas Europe's always kind of been in that middle ground. We've had some players on like really high contracts, but it's always stayed pretty sustainable, I think, for most of these teams. Just I think esports is hard to make a profit in overall.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Interesting discussion.
We'll see what happens.
Nothing to do about
there is a few.
Nothing to do with XLG2.
Nothing to do with XLG2. Nothing at all.
This is why Draco specifically said, "Don't let Mark host."
Yeah, I was actually told I was going to host, and then Dracos tweeted, "Mark is hosting," and so now I lost my hosting.
Wait, did Dracos tweet that I'm hosting?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Unbelievable.
I'm hosting now. My show.
That's what.
Should we go live on my Twitch as well, and then we'll just start talking to the chat and everything, and we'll go completely off topic.
On this man, these big streamers.
No, it's just I don't know. I feel like when Dracos on the podcast, he's like, "Here's 7 things. We're going to talk about them in this order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We started on 1, 2. I'm already on 6. You know, it's like I mean,
you also introduced a topic that probably wasn't even on your list.
I made a list of like 6 things that Dracos told me does, and I was like, I'm going to follow my 6 things.
And how's that going?
We've done one of them. The intro.
So shall we summarize G2XL?
Summarize G2XL. Right? Yeah, I think it was a good series. Entertaining is a very good word. Very entertaining. Yeah. I think the quality is a lot higher than most people would think as well.
I think so.
Yeah,
and I think people there's room for improvement.
Yeah, people see fighting and assume it's bad. Right? It was more than 1 kill a minute, but that doesn't mean that the macro is bad. I think XL's mid game was actually really solid.
Also, not to say there weren't mistakes.
No, sure.
And it's probably
putting me and Mark on the caster desk.
Yeah, definitely.
You were supposed casters, but it was a duo.
Again, we discussed this. Yeah, I was paralyzed.
Poorly. That happened to me once. I slept in a hotel once, and I woke up and I couldn't move. My back was gone. So I slept. You know what I did? I thought it was the bed. So you know what I did? In a hotel room. It was like a 4-star hotel, very nice bed. I just took the pillows off the bed, put them on the floor, and then took the blanket and laid on the floor on the pillows and slept there.
Yeah, I find when you have a bad back, lying on an uneven surface is a really smart
it actually made me feel much better. So my solution
worked. Is that
worked.
a placebo effect, or is it the other one?
Did you lie on the pillows or on the floor?
On the pillows.
That's. I mean, it's not a placebo. I mean, it could be a placebo effect. Could have also helped him. Maybe there was something wrong with the mattress.
Maybe.
So, but if you know there's you're being given a placebo, you can still get the placebo effect.
I know,
That's really interesting to me.
Yeah. If you're given a placebo,
you told me the word that the other one was.
Nocebo. That's where you get negative effects from something.
Nocebo?
Nocebo,
What the hell is that?
Where you get negative effects from something that shouldn't give you any effects. So it's like, I tell you there's side effects of this pill you're taking. I give you the pill, but it's actually only sugar, and you get the negative effects.
Oh, it's like when you're drinking like water and they say it's alcoholic, and you're like,
I'm going to Google
feeling that you're kind of drunk.
Did you ever watch House?
No.
So there's this episode on mass hysteria on a plane where an individual is sick, and then people on the plane start hearing about it, and then they start developing symptoms, and then they believe it to be contagious. So a lot of other people then start making themselves ill. and it's the same concept.
It's like psychosomatic.
And it was never contagious.
Well, one person was sick.
One person
But
was,
But it
rest
was
of
never
them were-
contagious.
but he wasn't contagious. No, spoiler, if you haven't seen this episode of House yet, okay, he had the bends. So he went
What's that?
diving. and then-
Decompression sickness.
So he then came up from the water too quickly, and then he went on a plane.
Yeah. That's why you have to
Oh.
wait 18 hours. Well, 12 hours if you've only done one dive, but 18 hours if you've done 2 dives or repetitive dives before you go.
Why is that? It's like your vessels in your blood, like
No,
smaller or something?
So usually, well, when you breathe in, you absorb nitrogen alongside the oxygen, right? And the nitrogen goes into your joints and then dissolves out in 1 atmosphere, right? In normal ground level.
Yeah.
But when you're underwater, the nitrogen can't dissolve out because too many atmospheres. So because the pressure, every 10 feet you go down is another bar of pressure, right? Or 10 meters you go down is another bar of pressure. So then when you go up, the nitrogen then expands in your joints and gives you decompression sickness.
And
Jesus,
if you get on
man.
if you get on a plane,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you fly.
Yeah, when I get on a plane, for some reason, like here, it stings so much and I can't
Here,
breathe.
we're on a podcast, Mark.
Oh, yeah, on the left side and back side of my neck, coordinates
Is it like
101.
behind your ear? Or
Yeah,
like,
behind my ear. Like
Yeah,
here, I feel like I can't. Like
probably
it's-
a eustachian.
Do you also ever
Stings.
like yawn and then you get the popping in your ears to like clear them out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a flip whether it hurts or not.
You can also do that by holding your nose and puffing out your cheeks, called vasovagus.
By the way,
So-
final thing on
For the
this
rec-
off-topic thing.
Hang on. So for the record, this that just happened, this is what the Medi Vedi podcast
Wouldn't it be
would be. So if that was enjoyable, I need some sense of validation. So
Yeah.
if there's anyone in the comments that
Write
sat
in
there
the
and
comments,
thought,
hey,
that actually sounds like a
Vedi."
really interesting podcast, then we will make
And if
that.
anyone likes me hosting and prefer over
not
Dracos, then I'll host
hosting,
him with
you-
Dracos.
And I'll
I miss
also-
you, Dracos, but I'm hosting so good. Last thing on this off-topic.
Could I
In this
just-
plane, by the way, in planes,
We had 2
Yeah,
lines
in
about
planes.
G2X.
In planes.
in planes,
Yeah.
100%, they put something in the air to make you feel more tired. 100%. Every time I
No,
get on
they
the plane,
I
don't.
realize there's less oxygen in the air.
There's-
so
yes.
yeah, but in the
This
plane, do they do
is
anything to the plane? Because I swear, every time I get on the plane, I feel more tired. I feel.
So I'm
I feel
going
like I
to
wanna
say,
sleep.
There could be a number of things.
I'm going to put this out here without having done my research, but I'm pretty confident they don't drug you on the
No, not intentionally.
No. You're suggesting that thousands of commercial planes do not drug you?
That's what chemtrails are! They're sleeping drugs!
No, I thought they did like they put something and then like it makes you like a bit weak. Not
They
not like
drug you
intentionally.
is what you're saying.
No. Maybe like there's a % less oxygen or more, and you just
I mean,
get a
there
bit
is,
more.
'cause
And
there
that
is
makes
less
you more
oxygen.
tired.
It's pressurized to a certain
You need to
level
put your
above
password in
the
it,
air.
lock.
Yeah.
Your password is locked. Don't look at my
Okay.
notepad of my things we're talking about
Okay, yeah.
when you
got it.
unlock it.
Got it.
But interestingly, you know why you have tomato juice on planes?
No.
Because it usually, you know how tomato juice doesn't actually
It
taste
just
that
press
nice,
enter.
right? Unless it's in like a Bloody Mary, tomato juice isn't that tasty on the ground. The higher up you are, the less sensitive your taste buds are. And so you can
So
have
that's
tomato
why the
juice on
plane
the plane.
food sucks.
Yeah, that's why all plane food tastes really bad.
Hey, some plane food has been good.
It can be good, but it's never like the best food I've ever eaten.
Sure.
Right? And that's because on the ground, that would actually taste quite nice. They put a lot of salt on plane food as well
Okay.
because it helps it taste better.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna stop us here because
You're
as much
gonna
as
stop
I'm
us?
the
You're
renter, we've been talking for 40 minutes. This is an hour
Benny,
and
you
20
feeling
max.
really sleepy?
And we've talked about 2 teams. Okay, I think the XLG2 summary was
There's
good.
only 2 more teams to talk about, though.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like I want to touch on a couple things because I think for a lot of people at home, I know we've talked about it a lot. Who can make the season finals, right?
Sure.
I'll give a quick TLDR. Fnatic versus Heretics on Friday. Winners through to the next round. The loser is completely out. They can't make season finals. They're gone on that Friday. That's an elimination match for season finals.
Where it's actually the winner also qualifies.
And the winner also qualifies.
Yeah.
So yeah, the winner of that is through.
I feel really bad for the record because I feel like in my head, the 6 that I would have wanted would be XL, Fnatic, and Heretics.
Yeah.
Along with
the winners.
BDS, Mad, SK.
I agree.
G2.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of this, like, I think our system, obviously, it's our first year of the system
Yeah,
when
yeah,
it comes
yeah.
to like the season finals and who can make it. And I understand the idea of like performance throughout the year shouldn't matter. But I have seen that sentiment of like, well, Heretics and Fnatic, I think both those teams are top 6 quality level. Maybe we could have like some system where
Can I quickly? Caedrel started the quick summary of what season finals means.
Oh, yeah,
Let me
let me fin-
do you want me
oh,
just to
yeah,
hit
yeah,
it? Okay.
yeah.
Continue.
Whoever wins out of Heretics and Fnatic is into season finals. The loser is out.
done for the rest of the
If
year.
XL make finals, so they win their best of 5, they are into season finals. If they lose that, Koi will be our last team in the season
That's
finals.
crazy.
So it will be currently it's Mad, G2, BDS, and SK all locked, and one of Heretics, Fnatic, and either XL or Koi.
Yeah, that's perfect summary. That's it. That's our 6 teams. But you're completely right. Yeah. So let's say Fnatic wins that series and then they beat XL as well. We don't have Heretics or XL, which I feel like is like a disservice to looking at that G2 best of 5.
Well, so we're going on another tangent again. The problem is that fans believe that Summer, because it's recent, should qualify you for the season finals. But ultimately, the way that you should view them is that each split should be independent of one another. Because you think about it, right? BDS made finals last split, right? Which wasn't even that long ago. And the split before that, you had G2 and was it Mad? No.
Sorry, split I'll one. Up for you.
Why have I forgotten who was in the finals?
Split 1, G2 won against Mad, I believe.
Was G2 versus Mad, then won, Koi, then SK.
Mad won Friday, Saturday, then lost Sunday.
Yeah. So it was G2 versus Mad, and then it was BDS versus Mad, and then now we're going to get G2 versus either XL, Heretics, Fnatic. Yeah. So, but the season finals is supposed to be like the culmination of everything from the year, and obviously it makes sense that recency people should weigh more. But ultimately, what just needs to happen is a redistribution of the points. Is that like winter probably shouldn't weigh as much 20 as it does, less on average, and then like summer should weigh more,
or some kind of system where like if you did well throughout winter and spring, we'll give you a safety net or a double elim buff for summer.
But that's what the point system is. That's what the safety net
so
is supposed to be.
My idea of that would be like not to.
I mean, Mad Lions is an example of that. Who have that safety net, right? They went finals, and then they got 5th.
No, 8th because
they lost right? So they have the safety net. They're into season finals because they got 2 finals in a row.
But this is the thing. The problem is, and like the expectation of a team that went 10th to then get 3rd, the expectation like for that to happen is just crazy. You know what I mean? And so like, unfortunately for XL, if they had literally gotten like 9th or 8th, that probably could have been enough for them.
Yeah, if they'd got 8th once, they would have got 15 more points, and that would put them above. Oh, that would put them 1 point behind Koi. Actually, if they finish where they are now,
and that's literally like if they had just won 1 or 2 more games in previous splits, that would have been enough. So it's one of those weird ones where like I totally get fan sentiment. I get what they're saying.
And it is frustrating.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize that like the team behind the scenes, this is the first year doing this, and I know for a fact that they're going to make changes. What those changes are, I don't know, but like they're going to make adjustments to the format to try and better cater and like fix some of the issues that this format does present. But I will say that like it's when you go 10th, 3rd, it's one of those things where like, well, you did go 10th twice.
True. I think it's good that we brought it up though, because it's almost like a cushion blanket, because there won't be a EUphoria episode until towards season finals, right? In a couple of weeks time, we'll have a break. But after this episode on the weekend, if XL do lose and Heretics are out and Koi is through, right? People are going to be like, wow, in our top 6, we've got a team that just finished 8th, Mad Lions.
Yeah.
We've got Koi, who didn't really deserve to make it either over a team like XL.
Mad actually finished 7th and Koi finished 8th.
We've got a 7th and 8th place team from Summer in our top 6, right? We've got a team like, I don't know, SK who had a great year throughout the year, but it was never really like a peak, right? So I think a lot of people, if that does happen, is going to be a bit upset. And I think the format, like we said, it's our first year. Maybe next time we can have like,
but like it's just specifically for like the world's representation. That's where I think fans get really concerned because they're like, we actually want the best possible teams being able to compete.
And it's
for
4
that
of
spot.
them, right?
Yeah, and it's 4. So you look at that top 6, and if you sit there and go, I only have faith in 2 of these 6 teams, then obviously you're going to be concerned. Yeah, and I totally get that.
And if you're like, wow, in SK shoes, this is great, right? If you're SK, props to SK. We have to win a best of 5. I don't know what the draw is going to be against Mad or Koi, who just finished 7th or 8th. And then we've got a guaranteed perhaps 4th place finish for a Worlds against an NA team, right? Which is crazy, right? You go into a top 6, you win 1 best of 5, you're basically at Worlds. There's so many spots, and there's possibility of weak teams that aren't in form, but they were in form earlier in the year. So it's kind of like a debate of whether they can bring it back versus having recency bias of better teams.
I also think there's a patch thing, just with the way our splits are.
That's a big deal,
right? Yeah. If you do well for 1 regular season and you get 8th place, 6th place, like well-ish, right? You can actually accelerate your points a lot by being good at only 1 patch. And you could even say it the other way, right? XL, they weren't that good in regular season here, but they're really good on the current patch. But they haven't been good the rest of the year. Yes, they made a player change, but is 1 patch sample size good enough to get you into qualification for Worlds when Worlds could be on an entirely different
Because
match?
For the record, the only team that has consistently made every top 4 is G2. And they lost to Mad in a 5-game series. And I think that many would argue that like
That's
if
the
Mad,
true finals, right?
if G2 had won that, there's no reason why they couldn't have been strong enough to beat BDS in the finals as well. But like G2 is the only team that's actually been consistent all year, to their credit. But like
we've had 9 different teams in our playoffs, 9 different teams in our top four.
Yeah.
Right, so,
which for me is a reason why I like the format. I like the fact that we get to talk about different teams all the time. A part of me enjoys the fact that it's not always like the strongest organizations that we see at the top.
I wonder if you could do some kind of like, no, I'm not going to pitch ideas here, but LPL, for example. No, I'm just going to bring up the LPL, for example. Right, the LPL, you have no double elimination until top 4. When you're top 4, you have double elim. But top 6 will go into the regional gauntlet, right? But the ones that go to Worlds, it's first place and the one with the most championship points. After that, everyone else is regional gauntlet. I think a similar sort of thing could happen. I mean, it does extend our league, but like the top 6, the finals, you could have the top 2 teams go, and then the regional gauntlet where 7th and 8th.
Adding in an extra tournament would always give you more clarity as to who the best teams are at the moment.
True, but
I totally
what
agree
point
with
do
that.
you stop?
That's the thing, right? We already have 3 splits and a season finals. Yeah, sure, we could add in a regional gauntlet, and I think if you want to be the best in terms of competitive integrity, you should just add in more games because it gives you more sample size. But where do you put it? If Asia Games wasn't on, we finished season finals and then like 3 weeks later we're at Worlds. Do you make teams play regional gauntlet there when they're only qualifying for playoffs?
Quick thing I just want to highlight before you bring up your point for everyone at home. Yes, the LCK and LPL finals finish in about a week and a half, and ours don't finish until September 10th.
Yeah.
But those teams have Asia Games in September as well.
Worlds doesn't start until October 10th.
Right, so they'll be starting Asia Games by the time we finish finals, so there's no like disjustice of like, well, they get 6 weeks off and we only get 3, yada, yada, yada.
I think it's really bad. So, for example, you look at LCS, their season's going to end and there's going to be a big gap.
Yeah, it's like
for
2
those
months,
teams.
I think.
True.
And I wonder like how much scrim and practice time. Like
it's a good and a bad thing. You could go to Korea and boot camp.
Just boot camping Korea for 2 months.
That's actually a good point.
And it's in Korea, so there's no worries about like
actually,
having to
be honest, I think it's only really a good thing.
Let's just end winter. Crown whoever's like XL second, right? Everyone wants that. G2 first. We play the One Fnatic Heretic series, and then we just send those 4 teams off.
Korea,
just send them all to Korea.
That's actually really good, isn't it? It's either A, stay in the NA, keep scrimming for a couple more weeks, and play more best of 5s on stage to determine more finalists, or B, go to Korea for 2 months and play against the Asian teams.
Very good for the teams, not very good for the viewers.
For the record, the season finals, like after that, they're still going to have like a month.
Yeah, it's a full month.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Apart from, I don't know when the NA versus EU 4th place.
I have no idea.
It's funny how like I love every year when it depends where Worlds is, where it's like Worlds is in Europe. The Korean teams are like, yeah, we'll arrive like 2 days before our best of 5. We'll scrim LPL. Europe finishes. Everyone to Korea, quick! We've got flights in like 6 o'clock. So
I will say though that like I don't have enough data to support this.
Sure.
But in my head, whenever World is in Korea, we know that the Korean teams struggle.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Western teams do better. Just because we get to go there and scrim in Korea much earlier on.
Then again, G2 did make finals in Europe in 2019.
No, I know that, but G2 was an enigma, and we all know
Fnatic
that.
made finals in Korea, though.
Was it 2017 last time?
2018.
2018.
Fnatic
made
I think
IG.
there was an MSI in Korea at some point as well.
Probably.
But the only counter argument to that is 2019, all European teams made it to the knockout stage. It was Splice, G2, and Fnatic that made it to knockout.
Okay, listen, man, I'm trying to build us hope, okay? Can you stop?
So yeah, I do agree the sentiment of like, oh, if we go to Korea, we can definitely practice more.
Everyone did well in Korea. Vitality only lost out to Cloud9 in that group of death. There was that Genji RNG group with Yamato. Like every EU team did well in Korea.
Correct.
Maybe it's a food buff.
So where are we the worst is the question.
Well, NA,
we're the worst. Only Rogue got out and they got 3-0'd.
Yeah.
We did pretty well when we went.
In China.
We did well in China. 2017, we were okay. We had 2 teams in quarters.
NA was 2016 as well, wasn't it? H2K. Was that Albus Nox in NA?
2016 NA was bad.
Yeah. It was bad. And 2022 NA was bad.
NA!
NA, man.
We get infected.
We do.
We get infected.
We can't. Never again. We can't go to NA.
No, we just veto it.
Yeah, we veto it.
Does Europe get a vote for where Worlds is hosted every time? Veto NA every single time and vote for Eastern regions. So we'll see how we do.
So
But
Heretics and Fnatic are two teams.
that's exactly what I was about to do. Don't doubt. I was about to do that. The host
That's a
was
great
about to
transition,
transition.
Medic. Great
been here
job.
for an
Wait. And Phil, could you bring up the graphic of the upcoming games? Perfect. So G2 G2's in the final. XL is on
Again,
the Saturday
podcast
match.
Medic game. I know we're on YouTube.
There's a graphic
Bring
brought
up the graphics.
I
So
know.
I feel like some people are going to look at the graphics.
So we've got 3 best of 5s left. And of course,
Yes.
quick reminder, I know I'm saying Friday. People are probably like, well, he's on Friday. There's no Monday games. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week.
Friday,
So
Saturday,
Friday
Sunday.
will be the Heretics Fnatic series.
And some of you are going to be like, why do you have it on a Monday games all split and then you move it on a Friday? Because we do accept it, okay? It just is what it is. Friday, Saturday,
And
Sunday.
if you don't like it and you want someone to blame, DM Vedius on
No,
Twitter.
don't-
His
no.
DMs are open.
Vedius
Flame
official.
him. Go on the
Oh, no,
LEC
you just
Discord.
Vedius.
Yeah, but you can also check out Caedrel's Twitch and his chat really ate him. So, it's...
My chat, you know what? Me and my chat are like
So
a
Team
hate club.
Heretics and Fnatic.
I was about to do that. Give me your thoughts.
Our thoughts.
Yeah, I'm the host, so I'm just
It's
going to
the
be like,
hive mind.
here's
Vedi-
a topic.
Here's a topic.
enjoy.
All right, let's educate him. So, Medic,
Yeah, Vedi.
when we think back to Fnatic versus SK,
Mhm.
one of the things that stood out to me was their early game.
Yeah.
And it felt like that Fnatic had reclaimed one of the biggest strengths that they had from the regular season. What are your thoughts on this topic?
I agree with you.
So you're just
agree?
doing what
Yeah.
I did as the host, but then countering it
No,
by
I'm
At least
Medic.
he's giving a bit of analysis.
I'm educating you on how you make an interesting point and then give
I-
your guest an opportunity to then further expand upon an interesting point.
I'm
Didn't
going to
ask.
say...
Medic.
when I think generally we talked a little bit about jungle supports in the G earlier on, and Trimby and Razzle could both come out and said that the fact that Trimby joined that team and took a lot of the need to be vocal away from Razzle has really unleashed Razzle on the map. I think Razzle is probably the best jungler in the league right now, in my opinion, at least. Obviously, we'll see how he plays against Peach and Yike, but
Top 3.
overall, yeah, I mean,
Top three, I would
definitely top 3.
Yeah.
Yankos doing good, though.
Yeah, I mean, Yankos is a very good player as well. I'm not saying anyone else is bad by saying
This is EUphoria, mate. You say something, those
Yes.
comments.
Oh, God.
Who did you say was top 3 again, Medic? Can we clip that?
The synergy between Trimby and Razzle is off the charts. They're playing really well together, and I think that really bolsters Fnatic's early game.
No, I
What do you
agree.
think, Mark?
Yeah, tell us, special guest.
I think Fnatic struggled in their first series against SK because their meta read was trash.
It was
I'm gonna be
awful.
honest.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
as much as you talked about like the patch being really good for Europe and Trimby being a good player, Trimby's best engaged support's Rakan, and I think he prefers range supports after that engaged support. I think
fair.
Nautilus and Braum and stuff like this is not really Trimby's wheelhouse.
His Thresh was good.
But Thresh's not really an engaged support. It's
No.
like a lane pick
That's
champ. So
It's
I
plain-
think when you're
yeah.
thinking like Rel support, when you're thinking Nautilus, Alistar, this ain't Trimby. And I think that's, if you look at the G2 series, Rel, Alistar every game basically, right? I mean, they did have that Melio
Can you
game to
bring up
counter the
Trimby's
Brown.
all time, like most
Yeah.
played?
Actually, I'm
'Cause
curious.
a
What is
part
it?
of me-
Rakan is his most played.
A part of me feels like that's not entirely true.
So Rakan, 41 games, 85% win rate. We
Yeah, his
actually
Rakan
did
is
the
crazy
numbers
good.
on Engage versus...
85%
yeah,
win
he's-
rate
he's
on
very good.
41 games.
But I did the numbers on, Adeo, our stats person, ran them for me. Without Rakan, his win rate on Engage drops to 53% from like 64% or something. And his Engage is like 53, his non-Engage is like 53.4% win rate. So it's about even. But I think like
Interesting.
when he joined, he was definitely more of an Enchanter, non-engaged support.
And
player.
it has been an enchanter / range support meta
Okay,
for a
that's
while.
fair.
Yeah.
But I do think there is like an argument to be had where Trimby is like, out of Mickey, Hylissang, Trimby, Limit,
Yeah, Trimby is
He's-
definitely the most.
he's the most range support. If it was a range support meta,
Rel.
Trimby would have them all.
yeah, because according to this, his Rel win rate is 84% across 13 games or 15 games. 13
Interesting.
13 games, Vedi.
13 games, yeah, sorry. It's
I mean,
hard
he's
to
very
say.
good at engaged supports as well.
Yeah.
And I would also be interested on which teams he played these champions on the most.
Fair.
True.
Right? Because if he's played the most Rel while on Fnatic, they're winning a lot at the moment,
fair,
right?
yeah.
And if he's played the most Rel when he was on Rogue and they were
don't
doing
think-
It
really
was
well.
more that just like I wanted to challenge. I'm not sitting there and saying that like I think you're both right in that, especially when you look at his history. Nami, Braum, Lulu, Yumi, they're all up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that,
going back to just to finish my point,
continue.
meta read was terrible. Even now, I still think their meta read's a little bit off. You know, when you go look at the SK series, they're still playing Annie on 13-13, which we don't see much of.
But it was into the Tristana specifically, which I think was fine.
I don't know the entire draft and what kind of champion they needed, but when it comes to like Annie nerfs and then like Nico being played, despite it getting nerfed, Caps was picking it, but he's like the only one playing it. I feel like if you're looking at that game, Azir was open and he's humanoid. I think they maybe if they needed to engage, sure, but they had like Rel, Rakan. Do you really need more engage? I feel like Azir, Zaya would be good there. Things like that. So,
but Azir was something that they already fell short on. What I will say is you just did what a bunch of pro players did, which is why Annie got nerfed. Now she's a fundamentally useless champion, which is not true. I think that like her nerfs brought her from Giga OP tier to pretty strong still. And I think that like all Humanoid did was he saw Tristana and he was like, I need something that can go into Trist. And that was something at MSI that we saw all the time, right? The Annie into Trist matchup was super common.
I will also say having Annie, even though you have Rel Rakan, like the first bit of CC is quite hard for Rel Rakan to hit unless you have a good flank, right? Rel jumps in, she's really slow. You're playing into Kai'Sa, Sejuani, Jax, Trist. All of them can jump away. Alistair can disengage. Rakan isn't the best primary engage unless you have a really good flank. So having Annie who can just flash stun and then everyone jumps in, I can see why that would work over something like in Azir.
I mean, I can see your point of like point and click stun, go in, it's going to work. We have follow-up.
It's just a wombo combo, right?
But I also have like the opposite side of the coin where it's like, I feel like against teams like G2 or XL, I think keeping up with champs like Annie, especially if games are scrappy and you're going mid-late game, as much as your flash ult is like a way to fight Nash and stuff like this, the reliability of having things like the Azir or like playing Jace Maokai is like so much more valuable.
Didn't they do that?
That's very valid.
The Jace they did. The Jace they did. And I think in that game specifically, like if you want to isolate it, you could be like, well, they have GP top, they need some kind of frontline, Annie Tibirs, they need a Rakan Rel. Like it kind of makes sense, right? I think the whole point is like support meta was weird. They were playing Zeri in the first week. Their meta read now is better and it's getting better. And I think this extra week will help them a lot. But they need to make sure they figure out exactly what they want to play. Because right now, there's so much you can play. You can play like AP Varus bot with a Jace. You can still play Zeri, like Weibo was playing Zeri with like, I don't know what it was, like Zeri Rakan or something. And he was playing like static Shiv Zeri.
He has to find a way to get Weibo in every time. It's unbelievable.
Why would I listen to the losers?
Zaya Rakan is still like obviously top tier. They're not out. They can still make
well,
worlds.
They are. They're fundamentally out of playoffs. That's what they are.
Yeah, but they can still make worlds. They're still in the regional gauntlet.
Right?
It's not completely doomed. And like they play GP, which is like interesting. Is the Rel flex something they can do? Trimi's got an 83% win rate on Rel. Does he want to play Rel? I think players historically, if you look at them in certain metas, like I'll just pull out Reckless. He played Kalista in like 2016, 2017. When Kalista was meta, didn't pick it. I feel like as much as players have like history on champions,
they can be stubborn.
They can be stubborn when it comes to replaying them. But I feel like out of the 4 teams we have right now, the only one who I think is just lacking a tiny bit behind on meta is Fnatic.
Sure.
Because I feel like G2XL were going crazy, and even they were taking it a step further with the Kai'Sa counters, right?
I mean, I think that G2 have the best flexibility in the current meta. I think that XL have a style that they found. The second best meta team, I actually think, is Heretics.
Why?
They are limited in a sense in their top lane pool. But I think that right now, they have the best possible top lane pool they could get for Ebby. Renekton, Ebby champion. They can play Ornn. That's a perfectly fine Ebby champion. They can still play Sion. While it's not optimal, they can definitely still do it. What else? I know he's not much of a Gwen player, but normally you only pick Gwen. The only thing I don't think I've seen Ebby play much is Jax.
He hasn't played a huge amount of it. I'll get him up.
But I don't think many European players playing Jax barring BB.
Well, the ones that I thought of immediately, there was Broken Blade, there was Irrelevant.
Irrelevant did play Jax, but he struggled against the GP a little bit.
Ebby only has 4 Jax games all time.
Oh, Nah is another one.
He
also plays.
I also think another champ that not many people are playing is like Rumble. I mean, it was banned against Odo Amne, I guess, but we haven't seen much Rumble.
Player, for sure. But yeah, I think that right now when like making sure Ebby can get comfortable champions, and if you've got Nah, Renekton, Ornn, maybe Sion, he's fine. Vito, in my opinion, right now, the way I would rate mid laners based on entire split performance, right? Caps. Originally, it was after the regular season, Humanoid Caps Vito. After the group stages, I was going to say a part of me wants to do Vito Caps Humanoids.
Yeah.
And we'll see how like these play out, obviously. The way that our All Pro works is across the entire season, which has its cons, but Vito needs to be in the conversation top 3 just because he has had an incredible split. Like there have definitely been games where he's had like weaker performances, but overall he's playing super well. Jankos continues to be really strong. I also think is a top 3 jungler.
It's interesting because I'm just looking here. Koi banned Rumble against Heretics. They banned it. Which is also something where I'm like, Ebby on Rumble. I'm not sure if that's like something they would want to take
Maybe
away.
something
It could
that they
also
didn't
just
know.
be a coy, general read that they don't
They
want to
don't
play
wanna
into
deal with
Rumble.
it.
But one thing I think Heretics got going for them is, I just looked at it here, Jace is like permabanned against them, which I get. Like Vito is probably a good Jace, but I think that's because Flakkit is just a good mage bot laner. And if you're playing like Jace AP jungle with a mage,
You play
you're
Seraphine
always
6,
shit. If
right?
anyone
Yeah.
has like the best AP bot players right now, it's Heretics.
Flakkit was always the Seraphine player on G2 as well, wasn't he?
Seraphine, Ziggs, and stuff like that. It's interesting because you look at the bot metas for all the teams. XL are going to play Kalista/Engage, similar to G2.
Well,
G2 have
Xayah
their
and stuff as
and
well.
Xayah. G2 have their Kog'Maw. Heretics have their AP bot laners if they want to bust them out. And then Fnatic has Noah, who's just going to
The
maybe just
Aphelios
play
guy.
Aphelios guy, right? So I feel like you've got different metas coming in. You know, VTO, you're talking about Heretics being up there in the meta. Yeah, they can flex Kai'Sa as well. Who else can flex Kai'Sa? We haven't really seen that from many of these teams.
Oh, G2 have. Well, actually, have we
I don't
seen a
think-
Caps?
No, I don't think we've seen
Ooh.
Caps
Kai'Sa yet.
Kai'Sa.
True.
So that's like a huge valuable first pick.
yeah, I get
We've seen
that.
Razork on Rel jungle. We haven't seen many other junglers just play it
And we
yet,
saw
I think.
Yike on Rail Jungle as well.
Other than Yike.
He struggled on it a bit.
Yeah, we struggled a bit. We've seen GP from Oscar. We've seen Jax from BB. You know, can they cross over? I feel like these teams have different.
Now that
picks.
you mention it, I will agree that we've got some pretty different meta reads from each of our teams.
Yeah.
Like a part of it will be a result of like limitations in champ pools that exist across any team, right? Some players just can't play certain. I remember when you were telling me how like you've had players in the past where you sit there and go, "This is really OP," and they go, "Well, I can't play it, so tough."
And you've got a week to learn it. I can't learn it in a week.
Yeah.
Boom. Then
Yeah,
it's
and
just
so
like-
you just got to then find ways in the draft around it. Sometimes it's just a permaban. Sometimes it's I've got this counter that's pretty good into it, you know. But I also just think that you're right, where different teams are playing towards different strengths that they have, and they're being flexible in different ways. Talking about like meta is obviously, I think Heretics have a pretty good read on the meta. But I've been super impressed with their mid jungle.
Yeah.
Mercer also like. He was good.
Mercer's good.
Like I was just kind of, like he's not a support player that I ever really think of, especially when you look at that team. Like the conversation always exists around VTO, but
I think
Mercer
Vito
plays
just
super well.
Yeah, Mercer played well. I don't think it's like the be all and end all of support.
Sure.
But Vito is his target selection in team fights has really impressed me. The amount of times I've seen him on an RE just find the enemy AD carry in the middle of like 2 or 3 players and then just win them the fight. It's very impressive.
I feel like there was players who like kind of single-handedly carry series last weekend. I feel like VTO is one of them, but also in their wins, Hansama. I'm just going to read you his scorelines. Okay, their first game, 15-3.
Yeah.
In their next win, 14-1. And the Kog'Maw game, 9-1. And like in the losses, he was kind of even. Sucks, you know, but you look at other player scorelines and like the way team fights play out. VTO on that Kai'Sa. Flakkit Xayah, he made a couple mistakes. He got hit by like a hook in one of those games and just died randomly. And it was VTO who had to like single-handedly carry. So it's interesting how like there is just certain players who can just step up and carry the entire game. And I think the meta allows them to do that. Like Kai'Sa is a champ that you can
Which is
carry with.
probably
Jace is
why
the champ you can do
Jace.
it on.
right
Kog'Maw.
now, based on the games that we've seen, I probably would put VTO first if I was to rate top 3 mid laners. It would probably be
After playoffs, for sure. Entire split, Caps has to be up there, right? Because he had a really good split.
he had a great regular.
But
Well, actually,
just this
after
playoffs-
the regular season, I put Humanoid first. It was Humanoid then Caps for me. Because I think Humanoid's regular season laning, he was dumpstering everyone. He was an
can't think of it off the top of my head.
incredibly good player throughout the regular season. And then, because it was in the first week of groups where everyone was like, Humanoid, what the hell? Where he picked out Azir and everyone was like, what are you doing, bro?
Also, one quick point. Trimby Thresh, I remember you just brought it up.
Yeah.
They're playing Jinx Thresh. You know, no one else is playing Jinx Thresh, which is weird. Like, there's so many, like you said, everyone has a different style, and I am not sure whose style is better. I think
Noah's
if you look at
hyper-carry,
other
isn't he?
regions,
Yeah.
if you look at other regions, I think G2XL are up there, and Fnatic is the one lacking behind. But Fnatic, if you're playing like Jinx Thresh, and you're playing like these Xayah Braum stuff, and like you are going to play Aphelios, which is last patch kind of style, or even a patch before with Jinx, for example, if you get to late game, it will kind of work, you
That's
know?
the thing.
It's just the game I feel like right now is so mid-game heavy, you know? With Kai'Sa
But
getting 2 items quickly,
that's
static
Fnatic's
shifts.
strength. They are still good in their early to mid game. We looked at the stat last week
Because of Razork, though.
and but it's I mean it's not just Razork. Trimby also helps.
Yeah, I feel like Razork has some games where he just is like single-handedly making the early game, and then one mistake happens, and it just all
that
goes
is the
away.
that is the issue for Razork. He'll get like a 2k gold lead and then get caught out once.
But to his
Dragonfire.
credit, like they went 7-2 during the regular season, and aside from losing to SK02, they went 2-0-2-0.
Oh sure,
You know what I mean?
Fnatic's still a very good team.
And it's
Oh, yeah.
but it's just one of those things where like because I think that Razork naturally has a target on his back because earlier in the year he wasn't playing super well, and he does have a history, I would say, of just making those plays where you're just like, what the hell, and throwing the whole game. And I just want to be like, this whole split, he is way more consistent than he was. Sure. That's not to say that he doesn't still make those mistakes every now and then, but I just want to give him his fair credit because I agree. After the regular season, I was like, he's number one jungler for me. Exactly. It's pretty interesting because when I think like, I feel almost bad for XL because when I think about their team, it's hard for me to actually rate all of their players in top 3, even though they find themselves in second place right now.
It's odd because Otto Amne, that series against G2, he got bodied.
He did,
he got bodied. And you look at Abadage through the regular season, he was struggling a lot. And in the first best 3, I think he was struggling, barring I don't know who it was.
They went 5-4 during the regular season, right? But Heretics was the same. They had like a good start to the split, and then they were very inconsistent. But even then, I still think, even in their losses, I remember like Vitios LeBlanc going like 7-1-2 and stuff, and like the players were able to stand out. And I just think it's fascinating that when I look at Heretics and I look at Fnatic, I'm looking at those two rosters to fill out my other, like, who do I put in my top 3? Who do I put in my top 3? And then I look at XL and I'm actually not going, even though Patrick had a great series overall against G2, you know, it was great to see Patrick back in form, a player that it wasn't. I think back to his time on Origin, where like he had his glory days, and he's definitely had his highs since then, I think.
The problem, that was funnel meta, and he was playing Ezreal every game. So that's the only problem AD carries are kind of like neglected.
Yeah, it's just, and it's great to see him playing again, but I feel kind of bad that like I'm not putting him in my conversation.
I think XL are just the quintessential sum is greater than the total is greater than the sum of its parts, right? As a team, they look incredibly coordinated. Their mid game is really strong, but if you look for individual lane advantages or individual leads, they're not really gaining them as often as other teams are, right? Like Abadage just doesn't just take over a game, but then he did, right? Again, in game 2 against Fnatic, he had like 15 kills, 16 kills on the Jace and just absolutely destroyed. So I agree with you that in terms of individual name value and general quality of play, I'd be looking at other players. But if XL continues to perform like this for the rest of playoffs, I think a few of those names are probably going to start creeping into the top 3s, top 2s.
I will say that coming into this series, I would put my money on Fnatic.
Yes,
they're my favorites for me in the best of 5.
Against Heretics specifically.
Against Heretics specifically. Fnatic versus Heretics, I'm leaning, I would say like a 3-1 or a 3-2 Fnatic. Pardon me. Only because I think that, I don't think VTO is especially lane dominant, but I just think that Heretics play a slower game than Fnatic do. And I think that Fnatic are much better at being able to build a lead and then snowball off the back of it. The way in which I think Heretics would win is Jankos shuts Razork down, because it's very clear to me that if you stop Razork doing what he's good at, Fnatic just doesn't look the same. They're a team that is used to playing with a lead, and when they don't get that lead, they just seem a little bit lost. It's kind of like, I know that's a weird thing to say, but like the way that I would try and explain it is just like, when a team has a 2 or 3k goal lead, they know exactly what to do. You know, the map state means like, oh, they've got a tower down. They know what they should be doing. They know that they're stronger, which means that they know they can fight the next Drake, and then they can like convert that into Herald or something. And like when they have a lead and when they're just slightly stronger, they know what to do. But when the two teams are even, that's where I feel Heretics would have more of an advantage. That's where I actually feel that I would have a little bit more confidence in Heretics. But overall, I guess I just believe that Fnatic will be able to find their early leads.
Yeah, I think Fnatic's favorite mainly because of top lane. I think you talk about like the Cassante and Renekton as being like Abby's champion pool, but Oscar plays GP, he plays Jax, he plays Olaf, he plays Poppy.
Is he a Gwen player? I forgot.
Oscar? I don't think so.
I don't think he's a Gwen player.
I'll have a look.
I'm a bit scared for them when it comes to the champion pool top and Abby's blind picks.
I mean, that's always the weakness.
He plays Rumble too as well, Oscar. He had a great Rumble game.
He does play Rumble, yeah.
So, yeah.
A bit of everything.
I remember we did EUphoria, and was it last week? And we were like, BDS versus Heretics. Give us one word to sum it up, and they were like, top lane.
That's 2 words, but still.
Top, What do you reckon?
I agree. I think Vedi's point about early game advantages for Fnatic really rings true when you look at Heretics generally. They won games via winning team fights at objectives in the mid game. Like against BDS, a couple of times like BDS were 7k ahead at 40 minutes or like 15 minutes in one of the games, a couple of k ahead in the other game, and then Heretics team fighting was really good. Like they're very coordinated. Flackhead's playing really well in team fights as well, and they were able to win. But Heretics, I looked it up, average 1.3k, 1.4k behind at 15 minutes, and Fnatic average 800 gold ahead at 15 minutes. And I think across a best of 5, with Fnatic's early game being as good as it is, you can't fall into that much of a hole that often and expect to win 3 of those 5 games unless you are team fighting just that much better than your opponents. And I don't think Heretics team fight enough better than Fnatic to actually.
But then, like, this is where you then have to, like, again, this is why I put the emphasis on Jankos specifically, because if anyone's going to shut Razork down, it'll be him. Right. And so if they can get to those mid game fights, do I believe that VTO is still good enough to carry games? Sure. You know, so like I'm really excited for this series. I think it's going to be a banger.
Yeah. I just think Fnatic, like the way you target Heretics when it comes to power picks, they're mostly mid jungle, those power picks.
Yeah.
Like Kai'Sa LeBlanc bans are a must, and then maybe a Maokai drop onto Jankos, right? You're not really looking at like, I think that Rumble ban, not so sure about it. As much as picks are mainly towards mid jungle, I feel like as long as Kai'Sa LeBlanc, Jace are dealt with, VTO is kind of going to be suppressed, unfortunately for him. So blue side will be so big for them. And then a lot of the wins that Heretics were getting were like Trundle games. And I think if you don't give them a Sejuani Trundle angle or like some kind of bad Trundle matchup, they should be okay.
And VTO has Ahri Trist. If you get rid of Kai'Sa, Jace, Maokai or something.
I just feel like Ahri is more of like a facilitator.
It definitely is, but I think he showed in the series against BDS that he can make it more than that. And I think if he is getting onto Noah, then Fnatic will struggle. Like in team fights, if he's able to pick out Noah, then Fnatic could struggle in fights.
Don't they normally do the Ahri Viego when they do things like that? So they put like Jankos on a carry, and then
Ahri Viego is what they do. Ahri Viego, they play Trundle.
Did they play Ahri Trundle, or was it Ahri?
It may have been Ahri Trundle as well. Like I don't remember all the drafts.
Yeah, I think it was one game of Ahri Trundle, but nevertheless, like I think for me, it's just a case of how much can Oscar bring against Ebby in the lane phase and shut him down. Because Ebby, as much as his 2 Renekton games or 3 Renekton games he had in their second best 3 to get them here in the first place, he was playing good. Before that, he was getting bodied in lane. Was it against Adam? I think it was against Adam. He was getting bodied, or the series before that, where it was just he was at such big gold deficits that on Ornn and stuff that all he would do is just group. And I feel like against a player like Oscar, if he's playing GP or Jax and you're giving him 2k gold swings and free lanes, he is going to murder your
Didn't
side.
he have the famous like 0-9 Scion game as well? And I remember the post-match thread where everyone was just kind of like MVP because he was just just throwing his body into the enemy team.
I think the Renekton kind of like helped out a lot of his games in terms of impact, and the Ornn was like I'll just try and go even or behind stabilizer. So he has 1 champ for impact, 1 champ for stabilization in team fights. And if you look at his match history, Renekton, Ornn, Renekton, Ornn, Renekton, and then Poppy Cassante. It's like, well, I think we figured out what they did in groups.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Yep, I think that's fair. But it's, you know, that specific topic has been brought up multiple times, which is that like Ebby is a weakness in the sense that his pool is limited and he's a player that many top laners have been able to beat.
So you're going Fnatic. You're going Fnatic?
I'm going Fnatic.
So let's simulate if Fnatic win XL Fnatic. Now, I don't want like a deep dive analysis, but I need like, obviously this is the last episode before us, so we need a full prediction. So now you've gotten Fnatic to the next round. You're up against XL.
Yeah.
Who do you reckon? That's a tough one.
It's the question on, does Fnatic's meta read improve from the first series to like from last week to this week? And if it does they then just carry the momentum through XL? Because I think XL, from what we have seen so far, is the better team.
I don't know.
It's a little difficult to say, actually, right?
Yeah, you have to also take into account, not sorry to interrupt you, is G2 was on a 12-game win streak, and XL almost
exactly, right?
them.
That's my point, right? Like G2 looked like the best team in our league.
Yeah.
And XL took them to 5 games, only lost because they got drafted against a Cogmore that then scaled through the game, right? XL looked really good, and their mid-game looked really good, and they didn't fall too far behind early game apart from game 1. So if they can negate Fnatic's early game, I trust XL's mid a lot more than I trust Fnatic's mid-game.
Oh, mid-game. I was just like,
yeah.
You trust Abadar game?
No, mid-game. I think their macro and their movement on the map was actually really good against G2. So I'll go XL 3-2.
XL 3-2.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
That is the hardest one.
Yeah.
XL Fnatic.
There's there's a part of me that just like still doesn't believe in Excel.
Yeah,
understandable.
Which is like, but it's unreasonable. You know what I mean? Like if anything, Excel is less one-dimensional than Fnatic because they've been able to prove that they can claw their way back into games. And so like the thing that I think is undervalued in my mind is just the sheer level of it. So Abadage has won a title over in North America. Odoamne has won a title here in Europe. Their bot lane is one of the, like, I'm not going to say most long-standing because they haven't played together, but Patrick has been playing for years now. He played with you on H2K?
H2K,
Sheriff?
Yeah. And Excel, yeah.
Yeah, and then Limit was playing back on Schalke. And even before that, I think he was playing, right? Like, Peach...
SK.
It was,
SK
yeah,
Limit.
like, Peach is a young player in a roster of veterans. And these veterans are now finding their form and formula that I think holds a lot of value, which is kind of why, like, I come back to that topic that I mentioned earlier, which is I feel bad for Excel because I'm not putting any of them in my conversation for top 3 players based on the entire split. But they really are the embodiment of they're greater than the sum of their parts, where it seems like that whole, the element of experience, the depth of their pools, their willingness to play anything, they seem to not be limited to a single style. They can play through bot, they can play through mid, they can play through top. Like, even though Odoamne was getting body, he did have that game. I forget which game it was exactly.
The Nar game, maybe?
Where he just stomped Broken Blade. I think it was game 4 or something.
He had a Nar game against Renekton where he had like a really good lane phase overall. He had a Poppy game as well into Jax, I think, where his lane phase was good.
Yeah, no, it was the Poppy. It was game 5.
Poppy game.
It was Poppy into Jax and he got ahead, yeah.
So like it's I guess like I don't know. I value early game strength. Teams that can build early game leads, I just personally rate highly. And I think that's just kind of like my intrinsic bias in that I think that teams that can build leads and then can use them are just stronger at League of Legends in general. And I still think that Excel is a bit of a slow team. So part of me would favor Fnatic coming into that series. But it's hard to tell. Odoamne versus Fnatic again.
Yeah, one last point as well, just about the Odo story and the Excel story is Fnatic will have qualified for season finals. In winning their first best of 5, they'll have made it through. And there's a certain degree of relief that comes with that. And a certain degree of not foot off the pedal, but subconsciously, you're in, so you relax a little bit.
More of a comfort.
Whereas XL won't have qualified, and Odo will have the chance to knock out Koi. I think there's a lot of drive.
He tweeted it as well.
He talked about it. I think there's a lot of drive for XL to win that best of 5. They have an extra day to prepare, which is important because it's a shortened week. We only have 4 days
Heretics
between
will
the two.
force things out from Fnatic.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
XL will get good reads off that. And I think Odoamne did tweet, there's no way that I'm going to let Koi get through with that last specify. I favor XL as well. I think the main thing that I was looking at is actually support. I think Limit is just playing so well, and I think this whole meta is so
now
good
that you
for him.
mention it, like that support meta may be the difference.
I am like so convinced that this like support meta is going to be the big swing, and this is the big reason why XL are climbing. And I think Limit doesn't get enough credit for the amount of space that he buys, like the engages he does. I think their shot calling as well. If you watch, there was a sequence I think in game 5 where G2 are on Dragon and XL Herald mid. They then like hit it enough so that the tower's low enough that the Herald crashes. They run into the Dragon Pit and they like go around and catch someone off. All of G2 jump over the pit to help them. And then they just disengage, go around, get the Dragon.
Yeah,
while the Herald's hitting mid tier 2. Like their
that.
sequence of like ins and outs in fights is really, really good. Even when the Kog'Maw was ahead in the last fight in the game 5, you can see them weaving in and out, try and find and engage on the Kog'Maw when W's down. So like they're like team fights, especially like Patrick on the Xayah, creating space 1v2 against solo lanes, knowing their limits. I think their decisiveness in fights is really good. And even if they fall behind, they will find ways to like cross map properly or like team fight properly.
What's your scoreline?
I think 3-1 XL.
Okay.
I think
but
XL would push
that's
it to
all
the
assuming
finals.
Fnatic even get there.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
assuming
sure.
that our favorites play
I think we all
out, like
mutually agree
Heretics.
Fnatic does look favored on paper up against Heretics, but Heretics have always another team similar to XL, maybe on a small level where they've been doubted a lot, and maybe disregarded, especially in teams like BDS, maybe beating them and such.
As
I
much
know
as
a lot of fans, like I know a lot of fans are going to be sad that you like. Obviously, Fnatic is a mainstay organization that you're going to have confidence representing internationally. But I think a lot of people want to see Jankos get back to Worlds.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's totally understandable that like I think that this is going to be a tough series to watch for a lot of us,
Sad
just
series.
because one of these teams will not be able to qualify for season finals, which means that they cannot qualify for Worlds.
And Vedius was last year, the year before Misfits, won best of 5 away. I think he was from
He's
making
been
Worlds
very
as
close
well, so
a
many
few
times.
Yeah.
So it's
I
a
think
heartbreak
twice
for
now,
him,
yeah.
heartbreak for Jankos in a failed year that had so much success towards the end.
Assuming they lose.
Assuming they lose.
Yeah.
And the same for Fnatic though, right?
Oh,
no
yeah, sure.
Humanoid at Worlds, no Trimby at Worlds. Like, this was a quick, like, throw everything on the table. Get rid of the bot lane, Noah Trimby, everything. Please work. Oscar's on the rise. And you're like, you're almost there. And this rookie top laner is doing good. And Noah looks like one of the best ADs. And then it all collapses. So for both teams, it's like horrific. It's so sad.
And it's just so crazy to me that these are the 3 orgs, XL, Fnatic, and Heretics, that just had bad winters and spring.
Yeah.
And what we said at the beginning of the split, like, all these teams need to get top 3 to qualify for season finals.
Yeah.
But none of us realistically believed that they would do it.
Yeah.
We thought that, like, at least 2, like, Fnatic started off strong, but we still thought that Heretics and XL would finish at the bottom still and not even come close. But now we're in that situation that we presented at the beginning of the split, and now they have to eliminate each other to go to
if
season
XL
finals.
lose, that's Koi through to the top 6. Which
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to be like, oh god, Koi, which is in like their own mess right now and trying to fix things. And like they had the whole support trade with Advn at the start of the split where we're like, who's actually favored here, Fnatic or Koi? I think we can easily see like Fnatic with their bot lane change is way more favorite. We'll see if Koi get it together. But for the finals then, if we're assuming that for you, XL, did you say XL or Fnatic would take that series?
I would probably go Fnatic favorites, then XL favorites, then G2 favorites.
So it's the
I go
rematch.
G2 favorites as well, I think, in finals.
What do you think of the rematch? Do you think, I mean, it's hard to say without seeing XL or like them play at all.
I'm not answering that question.
But
That's a terrible
that'll
question.
be a good rematch.
I mean, G2 won the last one, they'll win the next one. That's the only thing we can really base anything off, right?
Interesting. I think that wraps it up, really. That wraps up my notepad. We got through all the points on my notepad.
I'm starting to feel sleepy, so if we could...
Sleepy? Oh, yeah. Okay, we can wrap it up.
You got any tomato juice?
How long have we been going?
An hour and 20.
That's actually not too bad.
We're on the money.
We're on the money.
Is there anything you want to say? Final words for the podcast? Medic, I know this was your first one.
No, thank you very much for having me. It was fun. I enjoyed myself.
Vedius?
Put in the comments if you want the Medi Vedi podcast. Seriously, we can get
No,
it.
we're being
Dracos are going to be out of a job.
This is not a joke,
We
right?
can make it happen. We just need to show that people are interested.
The pitch would be that it would be Medi Vedi plus a pro player talking about
Stuff.
not League of Legends, right?
Just stuff.
It would just be stuff.
Like the time Vedi showed me a weird mole.
Yeah, I got a weird mole right here.
Yeah,
we
it's
can
a weird
talk
mole.
about it with a pro player,
Yeah.
On a podcast, it'll be hard to show them all. But you know
No,
what?
we can describe it vividly.
I know my A, B, C, D, E of describing lesions.
One of the
Is it asymmetrical?
One of the topics
What are the borders like?
that I would probably
Any
bring
color
up.
change?
One
the
of the
diameter?
topics that I would bring up with a pro player, for example, would be that while living with Medic, I brought to him a wide array of various mild experiences that I had regarding my medical health. And then I would ask him, am I on death's door?
Yeah.
To which he would almost exclusively reply, it does seem fatal. And then...
So your roommate said you're basically dying every time you
Yeah,
cough.
and then he would go, ha ha ha, no, it's probably this.
Yeah.
And so we would then bring a pro player on to be like, do you have any medical concerns that you wish to bring up with our
Where would
resident
you run
doctor?
this podcast? Would it be in a studio with microphones and cameras
No,
that has been
who
long-standing
knows
that
what
you
we
would
would do?
kick us out of?
Do you have any medical questions you'd like to ask Medic?
Yeah,
Because you're
quick medical
once in a
question. You got
lifetime. Any medical question?
Uh,
Here, I'll give you an idea.
That was Euphoria, the Medi Vedi Christmas special with special guest Caedrel.
does subbing with Twitch Prime reduce your blood pressure?
No.
Only if it's to someone with medic in their Twitch name.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was Euphoria, season 11, episode 19, with me hosting next to Medi Vedi. I hope
You
enjoyed
weren't
the episode.
hosting.
No, I was hosting.
You weren't
no, I was.
hosting.
No, that was a great hosting job. Everyone clap for me in the comments for the hosting job. Fantastic. You've got LEC this weekend. We're starting on Friday. We're not starting on Saturday. The first series, Fnatic versus Heretics. The winner of that will play
6 p.m.
against XL.
CEST or
Yeah,
CET?
EST.
Well, it's summer, so it's
Summertime.
Central Eastern
You never
summertime.
know. You never know.
It's when
though.
it's summer, it's the CET,
Nah,
I think, right?
that's
Isn't it
not
Central
true.
European summertime?
Something like that. Anyway, Saturday, XL will play up against the winner of Fnatic and
In the
Heretics.
central east of the world.
And then we'll have the finals, G2 versus the winner of that XL series. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys just before the season finals. There'll be a couple of weeks
the
break.
top right corner
And,
west,
yeah.
you know, Vedi.
Bye-bye.
Like the
They don't even
central-
say
the
bye-bye.
central
I say
left
bye-bye because I'm the
summertime.
host. Farewell.
Bye.
Bye.